Hello, everyone. Are we live? Can everyone hear me? Hello? Just audio check. Waiting to see if everyone can hear me all right. Nice. Okay, yes. I think there was some complications. It was saying I was live, but it was not actually live. And I am not a streamer, I'm a developer. So I'm doing my best. Thanks for bearing with me. Happy to see everyone. Thank you for joining me for the Mid-Backerkit live stream. We are going to go over a couple of different things, and hopefully I can answer some of the questions that people have been having and some of the things people might be wondering. So let's start by talking about the backer kit. Yes, I am so proud to announce we are just short of $27,000. That's over 1,000% of our goal, almost 1,100% of our goal. I'm beyond grateful to everyone from Rollgate to Tabletop Mirror to friends and family. It has been an incredible journey just to watch. In the last 30 days alone has been an incredible journey just to watch people supporting us, sharing things, and generally just supporting the platform and our vision. So I just wanted to say, first off, thank you everyone for being a part of it. Even if you're here just watching, even if you haven't pledged, I think there's a lot to say about just saying thank you for being here. Anyway, with that, let's talk about some of the other things going on with the backer kit. Starting with, let's talk about some of the things we have already. We all have seen these dice, hopefully, the nice blue labradorite dice. Well, I was thinking about it, and I was thinking, well, how are you going to roll such nice gemstone dice without having something to roll them in? So I'm happy to announce that starting at the end of today, we will be having a new add-on available to everyone. We're going to be partnering with Norse Foundry and producing a large number of TTM dice trays. Hopefully, some of you might be interested. If not, well, we'll still have them anyway. There'll be an add-on available later today for you to roll your nice new gemstone dice or other dice. I can say that Norse Foundry is a creator of some pretty solid stuff, and hopefully as you get to see it, you'll come to agree. That is the basic stuff. That is the only add-on we're adding at this time. Of course, if you decide that you don't want the dice tray right now, that's okay. You can adjust your pledge now, next week, the week after, up to 2 months almost after the backer kit. You can add on these dice trays anytime. So feel free to whenever you want. But anyway, putting that aside, let's talk about something that maybe a lot of folks are here for, specifically Project Hedron. This is a name for something I've been throwing around here and there, and I have a really hard time being secretive about things. I just get so excited about stuff, so I like to publish it. But I'm going to tell you about it now, as I've been mostly good at keeping this secret, at least the exact details of it. Project Hedron, now available on the site if you want to look at it, is the next chapter for Tabletop Mirror and Rollgate. It will be the vision I have for the unified platform and everything that it entails. There's a couple of phases, and of course all this is in written form, so you don't have to come back to this video if you want to know more. You can always just go on to Tabletop Mirror, and at the very bottom of every page in the footer, you'll see a link to Project Hedron, and it'll take you right here. Let's talk about what it is. So there's going to be 3 phases of Project Hedron. It's going to be a sort of iterative process where we're going to merge our 2 platforms. Let's talk about why really quick in case you haven't heard. In short, Tabletop Mirror and Rollgate right now are on completely different servers, completely different databases. Everything is entirely separated, which isn't a bad thing, but it also does mean that if we want to add a new feature, we have to add it twice, once to Tabletop Mirror and then once to Rollgate. Furthermore, it means that we have to manage 2 different tech stacks. Some folks have actually worked with us, some developers on the TTM staff and also outside of the TTM staff that we contracted. And it's not easy to maintain 2 different tech stacks. It's already hard enough to maintain one, so we're going to be combining them for the sake of everyone. The goal is, hopefully, by combining these 2 platforms, we can get weekly updates for both Rollgate and Tabletop Mirror, bug fixes that take only a day or 2 to get out, all that nice stuff from a developer perspective. That's basically the overall mission for Project Hedron, is to create a single platform for really doing it all, and being able to have stuff from Rollgate on Tabletop Mirror with all the functionalities, all the cool stuff I have been telling you about for a long time. Let's go into some more details. Phase 1. This is the big one, so to speak. This is the hardest journey. This is the first step. We're going to start with what I'm calling the test flight phase. And as you can see, it's kind of what it sounds like. We're going to be working with both systems, trying to basically create an integration that lets you use your Rollgate data, transfer it over to Tabletop Mirror, and then start playing. Why is it a test flight? We're only going to restrict it for now to 5e and a couple other systems. We're only going to do the really big systems, and this will be based on community agreement, as in what you guys want to see. It will be the other 2 systems. 5e is obviously the big contender because it is the most popular system. After that, I'm going to have 1 or 2 more systems that will also be eligible to be taking part in this test flight of sorts. In short, I'm going to ask Rollgate users, I'm going to ask TTM users, for anyone who wants to jump into this whole Project Hedron by starting their campaign, moving their campaign, either or, into Project Hedron. That's going to mean you're going to get a full virtual tabletop experience, or you can have the play-by-post experience as well. If you want to look on our site, you can see the exact details of what this will look like. But in short, this is going to give a couple of big features, and I'm actually basically reading it off this bullet point, but I'll go into more detail. The first one is total automation of your character management, your rolling, and 1 button to do a lot of the actions you want to do. So like right now, if you're a Rollgate user, you might be familiar with the idea of, someone casts a spell. You have to go into your character sheet and update your stats accordingly and handle all of that stuff, no matter how complicated it is. Once this is in place, people who transition will have the opportunity to be able to click a single button, apply a spell to them, and click another button to turn that spell off. It'll be that easy. All of your stats will update, and whenever you do all of these calculations, it'll all be automated. More on this later. The next thing is a complete and filterable record of events. So something that has been a commonly requested thing for Rollgate, and we will be adding this as a feature very soon for Rollgate. But people have been wanting to be able to search through the record of their campaign and basically figure out instantly, when was the time that I picked up this item, or when was the time that I talked to so-and-so NPC. All of these filterable functionalities, from damage being dealt to items being given or lost, or spells being cast, every single detail of your campaign will basically be tagged in this ongoing chat, and you can filter through it at any point. If you look at the screenshot, you can kind of see what this might look like. It's a little small for us here, but if you zoom in a little bit, you can kind of tell. Maybe it's hard to see on the live stream, but you can go on this yourself, tabletopmirror.com/Hedron, or at the bottom of every page. But you're going to have a ongoing chat log where it's color-coded, and you just click buttons to toggle what things you see and what things you don't see. Maybe you care about times damage is dealt, but you don't care about when you picked up items. That's fine. This chat will support it. Moving on, there is the fully customizable character sheets with automated calculations. So this is what I was talking about before. When calculations happen on Tabletop Mirror, we trace Why are they the number that they are? So maybe you're playing 5th edition and you have a stat called examination, and your examination is a sum of, I believe it's your wisdom. Don't quote me on that. Maybe it's your intelligence modifier, and your skill points in it, if there were skill points. In 5e, I believe they don't have skill points, but they have proficiency, which kind of functions similarly. On TTM, you will see that breakdown. You'll see how much are you getting from proficiency, how much are you getting from your intelligence modifier, and maybe you have a spell that increases your examination even further. That's fine. You'll have another entry in that breakdown, and that breakdown can also be seen in this little screenshot here, trying to really show it all. But the other thing is, you might be thinking, well, I've never seen the character sheet you are showing in this screenshot. That's fine. That's because it's a fully customizable thing. It is as easy to draw a character sheet on TBTM as it is to draw something in Illustrator. And of course, we have been working with and will be working with a UX designer. Some of you might have heard of her before, Brave from SideQuest Designs. She's done a lot of TTM's UX in the past. She will be designing us some custom character sheets for 5e. There'll be 2 that are exclusive to Tabletop Mirror, designed to be used with our platform, have all the fancy buttons and gadgets that you might like. But of course, if you don't like it, you can build your own. It's as easy as Illustrator. Moving on, the fourth thing you'll get from all of this is fully customizable GM views. In short, Rollgate users, I've heard you well. As a GM, you might want to know the AC or the perception of your characters. I will make that easy with a fully customizable view. Just like character sheets are fully customizable, GMs will have a way that they can easily reference, in whatever way they want to structure it, all of the stats of their party at any moment without having to do any sort of complicated digging or anything of that nature. The whole goal, if you haven't caught on yet, of all of these things is it will be this smooth, customizable experience. Moving on. The 5th one, a little bit more of the mishmash of smaller features that people would love to hear about. Custom tones. We recently added these to Rollgate, and we'll be adding them now to our VTT as well. Whether you're using it in play-by-post mode or whether you're using it in live play mode, you'll have the ability to specify when you chat what is the tone of your characters. And we're going to save those tones. When you make tones, they will basically appear in your recently used tones. We'll save about 5 to 10, and of course we'll tune this number as people try it out and let us know what they like. Another smaller feature is what I'm calling Roll++. If you're a Rollgate user, you might have heard of Roll+, where you can basically do certain operations like adding your strength to a D6 or a D20 or 2D20 with advantage or things like that. We're going to take that to the next level. TTM's dice engine is even more powerful. It supports not just simple operations. It supports multiplication, division, exploding dice, keep dice, pairing dice, counting dice. It's a whole mishmash of functionalities that should make it so any system that you play on TTM will have the support. And now we'll extend that to the Rollgate functionalities. What are tones? Good question. I'm reading the chat for the record, so you are free to always leave a question in there. But Kayunish asks, what are tones? Tones are basically when you read a book. In a book, you might see something like a character says, he says hesitantly, and then he says something. That's a tone. Hesitantly is the tone of that. So, for example, a campaign I'm in my Rollgate account is we are currently under assault by an enemy who is very much overwhelming us. The common tone used by one of my allies is panicked. So it'll be Theona says panikedly, we should get out of here. Things like that. It's to sort of convey a sense of the feeling of your characters without having to type it out. Otherwise, we'll be including all of the other smaller functionalities of Rollgate into TTM. We're using their already refined platform as a basis to derive the functionalities of Tabletop Mirrors, Virtual Tabletop, and more. Any questions on that so far? Please feel free to throw in anything. While I'm waiting for a question, I'll answer a question that I know someone will ask. What about mobile? All of these functionalities will also be supported on mobile. So even though in our first phase, we will not be supporting any sort of mobile app yet. It will take time for us to develop a full mobile app experience. we will still have a mobile application in the form of a web-based application. In other words, our platform will detect when you are on mobile on your phone using a browser like Chrome or Safari or whatever have you, and it will show you a different view. So instead of seeing a view oriented towards desktop users with a very wide screen and all the complicated functionalities there, we're instead going to show you a more mobile-friendly view. If you're a Rollgate user, this might look kind of familiar to you. So if you look at the two screenshots here, there is basically one view where it shows all the campaign logs, all the events that have happened, people that have picked up items, people have taken damage, people that have done all sorts of things. It'll all be in one place. And then there'll be a separate chat for where the people are saying things. It could also be color-coded with the same tone functionalities that Rollgate currently has. You might be wondering, how do I connect the effects and the things that happen with the chat? Maybe it would be useful to have a cohesive view. Of course, we'll also have a unified view where we will automatically merge these two things into one single view that has all of the chronological sequence of events. But of course, you'll also see that every entry in both your campaign log and your chat log has a number, and that number tells you the sequence of events chronologically. No comparing times or anything like that. Question from Narok Equilibris. Will there be version tracking for systems? If you could give me some clarification on exactly what you mean by version tracking, that would be very helpful. I will tell you what I think I understood your question to be. Version tracking will include basically being able to create updates to things and will track the changes. So we do plan to have version tracking. In other words, when there is homebrew content created on TTM, it is on our core roadmap. It is not here yet. It is on our core roadmap by the end of this year to have a system such that we track those changes. And the idea is if you are someone who is using something that someone else has created and they decide to make an update to that thing, you'll get a notification, first of all, that hey, something you're using has changed in its functionality, and you'll see the different versions of it. And if you want, and if your GM is, of course, okay with it, you can use an older version of something that's already been created. It would just be that you create another duplicate of it, basically. Like you click a button, and then you would be the new owner of this duplicated version, and then the original one can go off and change however the original creator wants to change it. Sounds like I answered your question overall. Kayunish, is there a timeline for updating the browser-based mobile app to a native mobile app? Yes, there is, and I will talk about this very shortly. We will be having a mobile app. As you might have heard, we hit 1,000% funded with 25K raised. That means we have the funding to make sure we can get a mobile app. We're hoping that it'll be done by the end of year. We're hoping it'll be even faster than that, but I'm just going to say there's a lot of things coming up, especially with all the support we've gotten, that I'm going to have to reserve it a little bit, but I think we should be able to get it by end of the year. Creative Octopus asks, what about PDF support? It seems like it would save time to be able to upload an existing character sheet PDF and then adding buttons and features on the character sheet. Great question. Yes, absolutely. That is something we definitely want to do. And I'm hoping to have this for phase 1 of this launch. I'm hoping that by the time we're in our test flight, people are building character sheets, we'll have the support for PDF support. I will say right now, if you are building a character sheet, you can actually import it from Illustrator or any other like SVG-based editor. Which sometimes some PDFs can convert easily to SVG, especially because Adobe owns SVGs, or they own Illustrator, which is the standard for SVGs, and Adobe also owns PDFs. So hopefully it should be pretty smooth, and you can basically use that import process. But next week, actually, I'm hoping to get PDF support online. If not next week, the week after. As I mentioned, phase 1 will be aiming for mid-September, and if I didn't, I'm going to mention it again. Phase 1 of this process, which is also going into the next question, Abhimanyu asks, when can we expect Rollgate to feature on TTM mid-September? This is the phase 1, mid-September. We're going to support primarily, and we're going to focus on users who have either existing Rollgate campaigns or are willing to start new ones in 5e or 2 other systems, which we have yet to decide. those users can start as early as mid-September. You'll hear an announcement actually well before that. Later today, actually, in all of the Rollgate and TTM servers, you'll see a form from me posted for you to volunteer to be part of this group. Of course, you do get prizes, and you can look up the information yourself. This is on, again, tabletopmirror.com/Hedron. It's also at the bottom of every page. But some of the incentives for people who are willing to take this foray into the unknown will include unique flares to honor your efforts and patience, as the bugs are undoubtedly there. But it will also mean significant contributors will have a lot of say over how the new VTT works, including functionalities, edge cases, and so forth. If you want a lot of say on how features are developed, that's the way. Okay, other questions? I believe I answered the PDF question just to be sure. Yes, we want to support PDFs, hopefully by next week. Okay, I'm going to keep going. Of course, feel free to throw more questions. Don't worry if it's already been covered. Throw it in anyway. Phase 2, early access. So the whole goal of phase 1 is to get things working, in short. We want to make sure that we have a functional platform where Rollgate users can go on there and lose nothing. Someone asked actually earlier this week in Rollgate, will we lose functionality? And my answer is no. I will never let you lose functionality. That has never been my philosophy. I will only be adding functionality. And ideally, I'm going to be adding it in a way that makes sense for you. If I was to ever remove a feature, it would be a feature that you didn't know existed. In other words, we do gather stats about what features are being used and how much they're being used. Things that no one's using, those would be on the potential chopping block, just to simplify the UI. But more likely, I'd hide it in a menu. I'm going to take a quick water drink before I talk more about phase 2. Anyway, phase 2, early access. At the end of phase 1, we hopefully have gotten a pretty good handle of all the features and making sure that we don't lose anything. Hopefully, we've actually added more things that make the Rollgate experience and the TTM experience even better. So now, phase 2, we're going to open the door more broadly. Not just 5e, not just the core systems, any system. The doors are open. I mean, to be fair, right now the doors are open for TTM users to build any system they want. But in phase 2, we'll have a whole system set up so that you can click a button from your Rollgate account and you're moved over to TTM. That easy. That's the goal. So the goal from our side of things is hopefully we've built something so good we can get at least half of all active campaigns to transfer over with all the features, all the functionalities, and just in general, having a working platform that is constantly receiving weekly updates. I think that hopefully that should be a compelling reason for a fair number of people to at least try it out. Of course, it's still early access. I don't expect we will have solved every single bug. I mean, TTM itself has been in open beta for 6 months and we're still solving bugs. So I expect that there will be some bugs also when we roll into early access. But hopefully there is not as many, and hopefully it is an overall pretty smooth process. The other thing, this is going back to Kayunish's question, this is when we will have our first iteration of the mobile app. The plan is the first iteration of the mobile app won't be fantastic. It won't be perfect. It won't even have probably all the functionalities of TTM, but hopefully it can have 80%. And that 80% will include the VTT. So if you're a TTM user, you've probably heard me talk about how some things are not possible on mobile right now. For example, if you want to build or create a lot of homebrew on your mobile, we just don't allow it. And this is mainly because we couldn't find a good UX functionality. We couldn't find a good user experience for people to jump in with. But in November, we're going to address this properly. In fact, the whole time from here to November, we'll be designing that whole process. And the better we can get things nailed down, the better we can make the mobile app at this initial iteration. Of course, there will be a lot of work to do here, and we'll see how it turns out. Honestly, we'll see how it turns out. I'm not going to say it's going to be amazing. I'm not going to say it's bad. I'm sure that it will be as great as we can make it, and I think that's the important part. What else? Early November is also when users from Rollgate can choose to transition over. As I mentioned, it'll just be a single button. You just go and it'll transfer you over. If you don't want to transfer over, that's fine. There's no forced transition. You're not forced to give up Rollgate. You're not forced to stop using your app. You can use whatever you want. This is just sort of a period of time where people who are interested, want to push the frontier and want to help us test and refine everything, this is their time to switch over, especially if their systems are not one of the popular systems chosen in phase 1. Otherwise, they'll have a while longer. And then that goes to phase 3, where I intentionally did not leave a whole lot of details here. This is basically what's after that. So if you're following so far, phase 2 kind of puts us in a position where anyone who wants to switch can, right? And phase 1 meant that we already did a lot of the refining, the cleaning up, and the overall heavy lifting to make things happen. Phase 3 is now a point, but as we enter phase 3, it would be a point at which we have solved a lot of the questions that people have been wondering, a lot of the bugs that people have been finding, and we have a comprehensive and thorough approach for the next chapter. I can't say too much about this yet, but you'll hear more. In particular, it's because there's a lot of unknowns. We don't know how many bugs we'll find. We don't know how many refinements will be necessary. Maybe our entire idea is bad and we have to go back to the drawing board. But we'll have to find that out as we go there. But I will say, if it does go like everything is according to plan, this will be in early 2025. So hopefully it'll be January, February. It might be a little later. It'll all depend on how things shake out in phase 1 and 2. With that, any other questions, please go ahead and throw them in. This is basically the long story short of Project Hedron. You are free to go read this at your own leisure. This is, again, tabletopmirror.com/Hedron. It's also the bottom of every page, as actually you saw. It's right here. Anyway, answering some of the questions. Kayunish asks, will there be support for tablet-based apps? I think a lot of people would enjoy using a larger mobile-based interface. Yes. We are actually already working on this. So the browser-based app is okay at tablets, or so I've heard from some folks. Some of the main issues is the browser app on tablet. So I'll actually show you. I'm using TTM Live. Wow. When you go to some pages on Tabletop Mirror, like for example, Sheets. This is just a demo sheet. It's slow loading probably because I'm streaming. If you want to zoom in, it's a scroll wheel. On a tablet, scroll wheel doesn't exist. So that's one of the shortcomings. But overall, if you think about it, a lot of the buttons and things you can press on Tabletop Mirror are all clicks. And those are things that Tabletop Mirror does support. The biggest thing that it doesn't support, and I expect this would probably be an issue for some tablet users, is it doesn't support like the different pressures of touch. In that way, Illustrator has been a lot better for that kind of thing. If you're drawing really intricate artwork, that's the way you go about it. But overall, yes, we are trying. When we launch mobile support, we're also going to be considering tablets. You can actually ask some of our UX folks. I have been asking them to think about tablets a little bit more and how the experience might differ. So yes, to answer your question, absolutely, we will be looking at tablet-based apps and trying to refine the experience for Tabletop Mirror. I think especially for a lot of GMs, tablets are a good middle ground between laptops and phones, and they're a good place for you to, as a GM, quickly take notes while also running a session, which means we should support it. Creative Octopus. Thank you. Thank you for the kind words. Yes, I am trying to do something that I don't think a lot of people have. And I'm kind of not sure why. Like, I think Tabletop Mirror is really just functionally, it's a really simple idea. It's just we're trying to build a platform for people to build games. Like, that's really all it is. Everything else is just tools that help you build games. Like, from spells to rule set management, everything, like, holistically is really just building games. And it's kind of amazing no one has done that. I agree with you entirely. No one's tackled modularity to allow any system to be built without the need for programming 100%. I agree with that completely. I don't know why. It's just the nature of things, I suppose. Or maybe everyone's a little stuck in their ways. I will say, behind the scenes, it has been quite a complicated process. As a lot of the TTM users have seen, it has been a long journey of bug finding, and also just general complications. The TTM engine is a behemoth, and one day we do plan to publish a guide to talk about how the TTM engine works, kind of as a curiosity for people who care, but also kind of for the purposes of helping people understand, like, how are things working under the hood, which I think might be useful for game designers. It's definitely a complicated problem, but I think we've got a pretty good handle on it these days. Brad Hutchins asks, will there be Excel spreadsheet-like formula support? So if I build things in a spreadsheet, can I copy those equations to the character sheets or something similar? Great question. I'll say right now, let me answer your question directly, and then I'll talk about my thoughts about it, because this is a great idea. We don't support it right now. Right now, TTM has its own way of computing stats, and they're kind of like form fields. They're actually even less formulaic than Excel, but we could support Excel, as in, like, the Excel formula stat, like, way of doing it is actually a pretty good way, at least in my opinion. My reason for not supporting it originally is actually because I think it might be a little on the programming side of things, and the programming side of things is kind of what we try to avoid around here, especially because at some point you just become Foundry, and I think there are reasons people don't use Foundry, one of which is their programming necessity. So I might enable it as an optional thing, like, as in, if you prefer Excel formatting, we can support that. I mean, there's no reason we can't support that, but we don't currently support it. But there are a lot of character sheets are in Excel, so, it'd be a good thing to include. The way TTM's engine actually does things, let me just show you really quickly. If you have something in TTM, I think, again, it's slow because of my stream, but if you are using some sort of, like, editor, like for this example, this is a spell that I've pulled up. It's just a series of form fields like this, where it's like, what's the area, what's the area description, what's the target, and some of these are like, you can just type into it just like that. For other things, area is more of like a calculation. So this is like, okay, if I just have a simple number, this is where I put it. If you want to do something more complicated, like your character level, you can do that. You just type it in like this. It's sort of a means of making it a little smoother and making it a little easier than Excel. But that being said, if you look at it, this could be reduced to an Excel equation. This would just be equals character level, or equals 1 times 1 plus 0 over 1 character level, or something like that. So yeah, that's a great idea. I'm actually going to take that as a feature request, and you'll probably see it at some point. Take that. Let me write that down. Feel free to ask more questions as I'm writing this down. Maybe it's also worth talking about while I'm answering that question, how exactly you wire up a sheet. We have a whole guide on it that you can actually look up. All you have to do is click the question mark in the top right and then look at designing a character sheet. I will actually quickly pull it up because it's not too hard. Designing a character sheet right here. This basically walks you through the entire process of designing a character sheet, but the long story short is you take a character build, which is answered in form fields like we talked about, and then you have the sheet itself, which is sort of like a blank template with a bunch of placeholders, and then when you plug them in together, you get a complete sheet. Maybe to show you again from like a sheet's perspective, this is the sort of layout of a sheet, right? So if you look at like attributes, for example, it doesn't say a specific set of attributes. It just kind of says a blank spot right here. If I click on this, it says strength. So this is where the strength score goes. And you can basically set that to whatever you want. If I go somewhere else, like for example here, this is the coordination. And as a sheet designer, I decide where all those blank spots are. When I plug in a character sheet, like for example, Arthur Longblade, then it will ask me what level, and then once it fills in the sheet, it'll basically put all of those stats in here for you. For example, when I go to my strength now, it says, what's my strength? Well, it's character level over 3. This system is a round down system. So character level over 3, when your level is 1, goes down to 0. Strength input is 11. In other words, the player has decided that the strength will be 11 based on their input, and this is point buy based. Or for example, like in coordination, you can see that I have my agility modifier, which is 3. You can see that above. And then coordination input, I put 1 skill point into it. And then you can see that there is an ability called athletic drive. And athletic drive would normally add something, but it scales on, I think, every 2 character levels. And so athletic drive does not add any benefits to coordination, so it's a +0, so the final number is 4. This is kind of what I was talking about those automated calculations. So the goal is that Rollgate will have access to all of these for all of their character stats as well, but also anyone who's using our VTT will always have access to all of this. This is preview mode, for the record. This is not the actual VTT. This is just what it looks like when you're previewing a sheet for the purposes of testing it out. I'll leave that open in case we decide to go back to that for some reason. Let's go back to questions. Part of TTM's magic is making truly complex systems approachable for non-programmers, but I do think the Excel sheet of method programming would be useful and cool to have. Yes. Hunter says yes. It would be cool to have Excel-style formatting sheets. Be careful, Hunter. He's a developer, so I might make him do it. We'll see. Creative Octopus says, WebM support. How will background management compare to Owl Bear Rodeo? Yes. WebM is for those who don't know, WebM is a image format. It's actually a really common image format these days. As in, usually if you go on Google Images, right click and save as image, you'll probably get a WebM format. And these are sort of 2 different questions, but I'll answer WebM support. It's an image storage format. We don't support it right now, I think. Actually, I don't know. We might support it. There's no explicit filters preventing you from uploading WebM. I'm just not sure what will happen. It's sort of a weird, finicky format for saving things, but we could definitely look into it. It's definitely easy to convert into a JPEG or a PNG, so we might just convert it behind the scenes and like handle it that way. But that's a good question. I will also take that as a thing to check because I don't know if we support WebM right now. Support. Okay. Abhimanyu Dasgupta says, is there support for GM-less systems? For instance, solo TTRPGs or games like Wanderhome that don't have player-GM dichotomy? That is a great question. We do not have support for it yet. That being said, I do plan to have support for that at some point in the future. It's just one of those things where, like, when I originally designed TTM, I didn't really think about the fact that we have GM-less games. But we definitely want to add support for that. In general, holistically, I try to add support for these things. I also realized, actually, that whole tangent about image storage format, I actually had mistaken. No, actually, WebM is a... I'm actually just double checking what is WebM because I think Dirk is commenting about WebP. Maybe I had mistaken the storage format. Oh, they're both storage formats, but in different ways. Hold on. Oh, it's a video format designed for the web. Okay, yeah, that's also a great question. I will add that to my list. That is a good question. Sorry, I went on a complete tangent unrelated to what you were asking, Creative Octopus. That's my bad. I mistook WebP for WebM, which is a little bit different. Yeah, it looks like WebM is more of a video processing format. And actually, that goes into your second point about now I understand what the connection is to Owlbear Rodeo. Yeah, so animated backgrounds are things that we also haven't thought about yet, as in, like, we have a place where you can build maps and build like in general combat grids and handle those kind of things. We don't explicitly like ban animated backgrounds. I think it should work. So in theory, it might work, but I'm going to test it specifically just to make sure that I'm not saying something works and it doesn't. And I'll get back to you. Or if you can, I think I know you on Discord, so I will get back to you. But I think WebM should be supported. I just have to make sure that there's no filters on it. In theory, the way we kind of render everything on TTM is we sort of plop it in an image, and as long as your browser can figure it out, then TTM should be able to figure it out. But I'll verify for you. I don't want to tell you that it works and it doesn't actually. Long term, I do want to reach animated backgrounds. I think to be really cool. If you saw our Backerkit closely, one of our first stretch goals we've hit, and we also hit it again later on, is the asset library. The asset library is meant to be a sort of repository of publicly available images, and including animated images would be great and exceptional. I think something that would be also pretty cool, because the way TTM does session maps, so like battle grids and things like that, is we are focused on procedural generation approaches. So you can color things as a constant color, for example, but you can also use procedural generation to actually generate a background dynamically. I think to take it one step further, not just having animated backgrounds, but having animated procedurally generated backgrounds would be, I think, pretty exceptional. And it's actually pretty easy to do. The biggest concern is it's a performance issue. So like our session maps right now are a little bit performative, as in like they need a fair bit of computing power to work smoothly, at least when they load up. Like once they load, they're fine. It's the initial loading that takes a second. So I will make sure that we can support animated backgrounds simply, but we should also be able to support procedurally generated, textured animated backgrounds. So we'll see how that goes. But good point. That is a good point. Newbie here. How do I access the VTT? Still learning how to navigate the site. Great question. To access the VTT, you have to have a campaign. And specifically, you need either GM or player or something like that. And I'm trying to improve this actually, so you don't even need that anymore. For one, to support GM-less games, but two, to also just generally support having a more free-form experience and just kind of trying things out. The way you do it is you would go to campaigns, and then from your campaigns page, where once it loads, yeah. So like if I go to, for example, like one of my campaigns, it takes a second to load. This is what I see. It says that I'm the game master because I am the game master of this. But in short, you have to go and invite all of your players, and you can do that from the edit menu. So if you go to this, there's a place for you to add a player and then invite a user specifically. I'm not going to click on this because I don't want to broadcast whatever users are appearing on the first page, but you can basically select a user and then send them an invitation. And then when you send them an invitation, they will basically see in their profile page, there is a place for them to accept the invitation. And when they accept the invitation, all they have to do is basically select a character. And they can change this choice later. They don't have to change it. They don't have to decide once and then they're locked in forever. They can change their character whenever the GM allows it. And once they've selected a character, they'll be added to your campaign. And then all you have to do as a GM is assign the level they are. So whether they're level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, whatever, it'll pull their character build and it'll pull the correct level for that character build. Then once everyone has a character chosen, and actually I'll go back to the campaigns, this top right where it says not session ready, it'll turn to a button that says join session, and then you'll be able to join the session. It'll be in the VTT and you'll have all those functionalities. To be clear, the mocks that I showed for Project Hedron, these are things we're still working on. These VTT overhaul, as I'm calling it, that will be done hopefully at the end of this month, but at the latest mid-September. So by the time Project Hedron launches, we'll have functionality and support for all the things I mentioned today in the stream. All right, other questions? Yes, Accidental Heroes mentioned. They're one of my 2 adventuring parties that I run sessions for twice a week. If not, I do have other stuff. I wanted to talk about where we're going with the Backerkit. It's been a while since I've touched base. Last we talked was the launch party. So let's talk about what's next. we have a long way to go, but it is not that much longer at the same time. We have only 2 weeks. We are halfway through the Backerkit. I know it feels like it was just yesterday we launched it, but we are halfway through the Backerkit. Let's talk about the stretch goals we've hit in more detail. First stretch goal, asset library. And I will pull it up here for you to all see. And you can also see the live stream again for whatever reason, if you want to. Zooming in. The asset library is the first thing we hit. We hit it actually on launch day. So we hit it instantaneously. In short, we'll be providing a whole asset of sounds, videos, sounds, animations, and images for you to use in your campaigns. Maybe this will be character art for your next character. Maybe this will be a sound for you to GM better. Maybe this will be something else. But we'll provide support for all of these things. The next one is at 5,000. We hit that also on launch day, if I remember correctly. In short, this was boosting our target system support. So we already have support for a lot of systems, but we're going to be adding support for even more of them. We're going to add support for 2 more that are decided by the community when it's time to launch them. In short, that's going to mean we're going to have a poll that will happen after the Backerkit is over, and people will be able to select whatever system they want to see. I have some guesses about the ones that might actually be the ones that get picked for this, but who knows? I think everyone will have their own thoughts about this, and so I'm not going to say, what's the system we go with, because I don't know yet. I did try to crop it out so it's a little less distracting, the live stream. Anyway, at 7,500, we boosted the free tier. This was actually a personal goal that I really wanted to hit. I wanted to basically increase the free tier for everyone. If you've been around a while, you'll know that I generally think that there's a little bit too much subscription services and a little bit too many people trying to buy things. That being said, the reason we're a subscription service is the same reason everyone else is. If you have ongoing updates and ongoing support, you need some way to keep the lights on, basically. Not to mention, the servers are also going to cost us every month, so we have to keep it going somehow. By hitting this goal, this was really big for me because we could boost the free tier. We actually boosted it by over 50%. So people will be able to create even more stuff without needing any sort of membership at all, ever. Which also means that I would be surprised if there are players who need this. It'd be one thing if there are players who are also doing world building or homebrewing, but I would be genuinely surprised for most players to ever need something like a subscription on TTM. So that was huge. Moving on, 3D battle grids, another really exciting goal. And this is also the asset library improvement. So before I mentioned you're going to get animations, you're going to get images, you're going to get audio. In this goal, we're going to expand our battle grid system from 2D to 3D entirely, which includes the animated backgrounds I mentioned earlier, or will include those. When we do that, that 3D support, which will have, not just 2-dimensional tokens, but you can have 3-dimensional tokens that you can upload, will also include some tokens that you can just have, like publicly accessible assets for you to use, as in we'll pay for the rights for them and make sure that everyone has that nice character token that they want to use. And of course, if you want to design your own, if you're familiar with STLs and things like that, you can design your own. That's totally fine too. So this was pretty exciting. I'm personally a GM that uses a lot of 3-dimensional combat, and it's really difficult. I'll be honest, it's extremely difficult to keep it in your head of just where people are altitude wise. That being said, I'm really excited to see it on Tabletop Mirror, and hopefully it'll make it a lot easier. After all, I'm someone who needs it, so I will have an idea, hopefully, of how to make it in a way that makes it easier for me, and hopefully that makes it easier for everyone else too. Of course, feedback will be very appreciated the whole way. 17.5, card support. This was a huge request by the community. There were so many people who were asking me about card support, and I was always really disappointed because at the time when I was planning the Backerkit and all that, I just couldn't say for sure when it would happen. I know I wanted to have it at some point. I mean, after all, if you think about it, a lot of card systems are in a way similar to dice, but not the same, as in they're all random chance, right? Like they're all drawing from something and picking a random thing. I'm really excited to see card support on TTM. I can tell you, if you're in my parties, if you're one of the people I GM for, that means we can have Tarot decks or Haro decks or all those sort of esoteric decks in our system, which is mostly a dice-based system. So to answer some questions that people have asked me about this now that we've hit the goal, yes, this will mean that you can have cards in your dice system, or you could have dice in your card system, or you could have whatever you want. If you watched a recent interview I did with Mildred the Monk, I mentioned that the goal for card systems is to have it sophisticated enough that if you wanted to play Magic the Gathering inside 5e, that's fine. That's the goal. I can't say we'll hit that immediately. After all, that's a very complicated card game. But that's the kind of basis that I'm aiming at. So whatever we can do to get to that point is what we will do. It will take some time. It will probably take more than just this year to get to the point where you can play Magic the Gathering in your tavern in 5e. But that's the long-term objective. So I'm pretty excited for that. And I know that hopefully by the end of this year, we can have at least some fundamental card support and at least the standard interactions of MTG already working. 25. This was the recent one. This was a huge milestone for us. The mobile app. I'm very excited to have a mobile app. I think for a lot of people, and I'm sure some of you can relate, there's not really a good VTT that handles mobile. So like if you're trying to play at a table and your tables can only seat 4 people, but you have 6 people and everyone only gets like a tiny bit of space and you have to use your phone, it's not a great experience if you're trying to use some sort of digital supplement to your in-person play. That's what I'm trying to solve with TTM's mobile app, is to give you an experience so that you can have this mobile experience, whether you're on a phone or a tablet or desktop, it'll be a good experience all the way through. And with this funding, we can do that. I'm pretty confident about it. It's definitely going to be a learning curve. Like, as I mentioned earlier with Project Hedron, it will take some time to really nail things down, but I'm pretty optimistic about how it's going to turn out. The next stretch goal. So that was the end of all the stretch goals we've hit. And now let's talk about what we haven't hit. And I will also talk about the lowest stretch goal, which we have not revealed yet. I'm going to reveal it right now. The next one, 35, we're going to hit the portrait maker. So this is a sort of idea I had that if you're a player and you want to build a character like of some kind, and you might want some art for it, especially when you have something like a virtual tabletop where there's just your main means of interacting with your party are going to be through a screen, especially if you're distanced geographically. I thought it would be cool if you could have a basic portrait maker. And of course, this is not AI generated. There's not going to be like some sort of like, oh, I'm going to hook you up to Midjourney or something like that. The goal of this is you're going to have like an old school RPG style experience where you can basically have a character and you have sliders and you have like options to pick different hair colors, hairstyles, things like that. And so you'll get to see your character art being built in front of you, sort of like a mishmash connection of things like the old school RPGs. And you'll have a unique piece of art. I mean, maybe it's not perfectly unique, but the goal is with the asset library as big as it is, we'll be able to create some pretty unique character art and you can use it in your sessions. This is a good alternative, especially if you're just a casual player who just wants to play some 5e and have a character art that kind of looks at least somewhat like your character in your head. Moving on. 45, the fully offline support by the end of the year. This is a huge effort. I'm pretty optimistic we're going to hit this one. This is actually like what I think is going to be the hardest to hit. Like we're just going to barely make it to that point. But if we can hit this, that'll be also huge. So many people have been asking for offline support. And I'm going to be honest, me too. I've been traveling a little bit more recently. Specifically, I've been going to Gen Con and other conventions, and I have plans to go to even more conventions. And those conventions, when I'm traveling, it's so hard to use TTM because if you're on a plane, even if you get the Wi-Fi, it's not great Wi-Fi. And TTM isn't like super data hungry, but it's enough that it's hard to experience all of its functionalities the way it's supposed to be experienced. So with the offline support, what this means, if we can hit this, is we will have the same kind of functionality that you can see on Google Drive or Dropbox, where your content is synced to your local machine, your computer or your phone or whatever it is, and you can access it without having connection to the internet. And this is sort of in line with the whole mobile app experience, like as in some of this budget will also go towards fleshing out the mobile app so it can do this for us, especially for phones. But it will also go toward making sure that the web version works with a desktop. And the whole reason we haven't done this, and the whole reason we can't just say we're going to do it right now, is because it's not because we don't want to. It's because it's hard. It's technically complicated, as in, if you're a programmer, maybe I'll lose some of you here, but I'm just going to quickly touch base. If you're a programmer, you know there's a lot of different types of computers. There's Windows, Mac, Linux, and then there's on the phone side of things, there's Android, there's iPhones, there's all sort Windows phones, and all sorts of other things. Supporting all of those things is hard, technically speaking. But I'm optimistic that if we hit this goal, we can do it, and we can do it by the end of the year. And if we can do that, then that means next year we are in a good position to set up a self-hosting system. In other words, if you're just playing in a basement somewhere, your weekly game of Dungeons and Dragons in the dungeon, that's fine. You'll just be able to set up a local area network like a LAN and just host it on your computer, and then people can just connect to it from the same room or the same building or whatever it is. You wouldn't need any online connection to use TTM, at least for shorter, smaller things. Of course, if you want to share things publicly or make it like available to the world, you'll still need internet connection. But for those kind of functionalities, I think it'd be pretty cool to have fully offline support. So hopefully we can get that. So let's really work hard, share things. We can get to that point. I know we can. As the new folks say, let's get that bread. Moving on. 60K. This is the real hard one. After this point, I will say it's going to be rough to get to that point. 60K and on. I don't know if we're going to make it. That's going to be really difficult, but hopefully we can. Discord bot. What does this mean? A lot of play by posts today is using Discord directly. And after all, as I've mentioned before in our fireside chats and things of that nature, the going onto Discord and trying to fight Discord at doing Discord things like having video conferencing or audio video streams or things like that, it's going to be difficult. I'm refusing to do it on TTM. I've always said TTM is meant to supplement Discord, supplement your other apps. It's meant to be an aid to help you use other platforms more effectively. Discord integration with the Discord bot is sort of that natural advancement. If we can hit this goal, we'll have a bot that you can directly use for TTM related things. You want to reference a spell, that's fine. The bot will handle it. You want to roll initiative from your Discord channel, that's fine. You want to have some people play by post via Discord and some people play by post via TTM, you got it. That's the goal. And of course, if we can get to this point, we're also going to be looking at Discord activities whenever they make their public announcement and they release the SDK, as it's called. We'll be looking at Discord activities. So if you want to do everything, including running a session from Discord, it'll be possible. Moving on, 80K. Remember that portrait maker I mentioned? We're going to extend it to 3 dimensions. Just like we've had the 3-dimensional battle grids, we're going to have a 3-dimensional portrait maker. At this point, it's kind of going to look like how Skyrim or Fallout works, where you have a character where you start with a sort of very rough general character and you just add on to it. You add whatever you want to add to it. And overall, you'll build this nice 3-dimensional token / model, as they would say. You use your 3-dimensional model in session. You can have, of course, different equipment, different items, things like that. I will say, I think, hopefully, if we do it right, we can make it so as you change equipment in-game, it will change the equipment that your model uses, which I think would be pretty cool. Okay, and then the last one, it's locked, as they say. I will be announcing it right now. This is a little impromptu, but I will update it later today. This is called Project Fantasy, and you will hear about it more later, but for now, you'll just hear about it from me. Imagine if you could roll a dice in real life and watch it roll across your screen. That's it. That's the whole idea. We want to create a way so that you can point your webcam at your dice and it will just watch the die roll, see what it lands on, and simulate the exact same roll on your computer. The idea being you could play like you're being in person. You could play like you're all sitting around the same table, but you're not. And TTM just makes it feel a little bit closer in that way. More on this later, but that's Project Fantasy. It'll be at 100K, but I am skeptical. We'll get to that point, but maybe. Who knows? Who knows? That's sort of what we have coming up. And of course, we'll be making updates to add our new dice trays if you haven't seen them. We'll also be generally just continuing to monitor all of our channels. So if you have questions and comments, feel free at any point to come say hello. I just want to say again, though, it's been an incredible journey to get as far as we have gotten with our backer kit. I'm so honestly like impressed and floored by the support of everyone in our community, and I know that we're going to make some amazing things. I have no doubt about it. From people asking questions to people just trying things out, Tabletop Mirror really is going to be something different in the best ways, I think. And hopefully, if you're all here, you agree with that. But anyway, to close out a little bit, closing a little bit early, but nonetheless, if you have questions, feel free to throw things in the chat. I'll still be here. For those joining us a little late, because I think a fair number of folks did, not only will our backer kit be offering the dice that we've all seen before, we're also going to be offering dice trays as of later today. So keep an eye out for that, and if you want it, make sure you grab it. Other than that, thank you everyone for joining me. We are just at the precipice of 27, and I'm pretty sure we're going to hit it. It's going to be an amazing 2 weeks left. There's still some exciting stuff happening. If you haven't checked it out, there's a new video we've been posting, a short for our YouTube. I would recommend watching it. I did not make it. I'll say I did not make it. Go check it out. It is an amazing video. Furthermore, we are also, if you haven't heard, we've partnered with Dungeon Dudes as well, so you might hear them mentioning us, or you may have already heard them mention us. Otherwise, of course, Swole Initiative has been working with us for the last 2 weeks. And now as we go into these last final 2 weeks of our backer kit, not just the first two, but the final two, with the dice trays and all the stretch goals still before us, I want to say thank you for joining me, and I'll talk to you again next time at the end of our backer kit. Thanks, everyone.